Thank you, Danielle. In the U.S., there are more than 6.2 million people over the age of 65 who are living with Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common form of dementia. But you may not know 40% of all dementias may be delayed or prevented. May is Brain Awareness Month, and this morning, behavioral neurologist Dr. Gregg from Mayo Clinic is joining us now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. And you're here to talk to us about healthy brain aging and things that we can do to sharpen our minds. First, can you just tell us what exactly is dementia and how do you know if you have it?
Yeah, very good question. Dementia really refers to a syndrome. It's a change in memory and thinking that stops an individual from doing things that they could have done well on their own before, and ultimately gets in the way of daily activities, the things that we expect someone to be able to do. There are many different causes of dementia, and so it really is a term that we apply to patients that may have one of any number of diseases, Alzheimer's disease being the most common cause in older individuals, as you've said. I think the way that we detect dementia, it really actually relies on family, usually people that know us best, that would recognize that change, that know how we should be, and are seeing that over time, we are consistently behaving in a different way, forgetting things, leaving behind items, maybe repeating questions, stories, or statements may be some of the most common signs, but we may also see some changes in behavior. People whose personality is shifting over time, aren't as happy as they used to be, might be responding in uncharacteristic ways, or people that may have disorientation, getting lost when they're leaving their home out to a different part of the city, maybe even getting lost in more familiar areas. Those are all clues and questions that we look for when we're talking with patients that might be beginning to have symptoms of dementia.
Is there a common age that people start to see signs of dementia or Alzheimer's?
So yes, I think we can see signs emerging even in younger individuals. And by younger individuals here, I mean people in their 40s or 50s. But the most common time that we're going to see dementia, what we'll call that highest risk period, is really over the age of 60, certainly over the age of 65. We do think that the risk of Alzheimer's disease in particular continues to increase as people age. So by the time that we're in our 80s, that'll be our highest risk period for life.
And I've even heard that some people as young as in their 20s can see some signs. I mean, is that common? It doesn't seem like that's the main age group there, but is that still a possibility?
So it is a possibility, but it isn't common. There are a very rare set of disorders that can affect people as early as 20 or 30, and even some incredibly rare causes of Alzheimer's disease. This usually occurs in families where there is a genetic driver, so an abnormal gene that causes that individual to have brain changes starting really early in life and symptoms to emerge in the 20s. And normally in those families, we're going to hear a history of other family members that had problems around the same time. So it's something we can see. It's not something that's common.
And is there any way to prevent this, or are there ways that you can keep your brain sharp and maintain your brain health?
I think that's really the focus of this month. And of course, it's the focus of what we do at Mayo Clinic, both in our clinic side and in our research side, where we're really trying to hone in on exactly that question. What can we do with our patients at whatever stage of life that they're in to reduce their risk of dementia in the future? And the good news is that the data suggests there is an answer to that we know that particularly early in life and in midlife, making those positive changes, getting an education, completing and attaining those vocational goals can be helpful, as well as starting some healthy habits. So eating healthy is important, probably most important in midlife. Controlling things like blood pressure, blood sugar, and blood cholesterol, the things that we do with our family doctors, is also critically important to improving brain health. And then the day-to-day things, managing sleep, making sure that we're getting a good night's sleep when we can. Lots of fluids, hydration, keeping up with the other health issues, and avoiding some of those habits like smoking or excessive alcohol use are all important. As we get older, those things probably become even more important. It's important to sustain that healthy lifestyle. It's also really important to be exercising. I know we don't all like to hear that. We'd like there to be a pill that we can take that's going to prevent changes in the brain in the future, but so far nothing has been shown to be more effective at reducing our risk of dementia than daily physical exercise, or exercising 3 to 4 times a week. And that benefit seems to continue into later life as well.
All right. Well, this is all such wonderful information. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You're so very welcome. Thanks again for the chance.